Hi. Nobody's watching right now. I'm just going to sit here and wait because this is supposed to be a Q&A and nobody's here yet. But anyways, I just wanted to do a live because as of last night, Biotech Babe made it to 1,000 likes, and that's pretty amazing. It's my cat meowing at me. Hi, Dust Bunny. I have a cat. Her name's Dust Bunny, and she's meowing because she wants attention. Hi, Ravi. So yeah, last night we reached 1,000 followers or likes on Facebook, I guess, which is a milestone. So I thought I'd do a live to celebrate that and to thank everyone for all their support so far. I'm just kind of a biotech student. I'm doing my final year this coming school year, and I've just kind of decided to do this page in my spare time for fun, just because I really enjoy laughing at science derp, especially in the like holistic and natural field, just because of where I came from the nutrition field to begin with. And so I've just kind of done this in my spare time for fun. So it's been a learning experience, and it's been a journey on my way as a student. Unfortunately, didn't have a lot of footage to share with you guys this year because our cell phones actually got banned from the labs this year because there were certain individuals, not going to say names, it wasn't me, I swear, but certain people were using their cell phones to cheat or communicate when they shouldn't have been in the labs. So unfortunately they were banned, and I wasn't able to do a lot of live stuff, which would have been fun. I did grab a few things from the first semester before that happened. Another thing that's happened too is I added a group onto the Biotech Babe page. It's the Science Juice 2.0. It's a group run by myself, who's just new. The creation I really had nothing to do with, but it's also run by a few other smaller and growing science pages who have decided to come together and try to collab. So you guys should definitely check that group out and check out the pages. They're all listed in a pinned post in the group. It's called the Science Juice 2.0. So if you want to give that a join, check out some of the other pages that are collaborating in there. From what I've seen, they have some really good content, so it's definitely worth a like or even just a look. And it'd be awesome if you guys joined the group, of course. So I don't know, I kind of wanted to do this too, Q&A, if anyone had like any questions about like science derp, if you wanted me to look at any links or do any like live reactions. Kind of looking to do more lives just because I don't know, it'd be fun to do more interactive stuff. And also sometimes it's a lot easier to go through some of the pseudoscience when I'm just talking instead of typing it out. In some cases, it's just a lot easier, especially when it's a more lengthy debunking or something quite similar. I know I've had a few requests, and I would like to do those in the future. Things like the vaccine ingredients, which I think is worth going through because there seems to be a lot of confusion out there about the ingredients and the levels of them and what they actually are. So that would be good. But yeah, I'm just kind of waiting for questions. Does anybody have questions? Well, this is fun. Hi, Andres. Yes, I am a student. I'm studying biotechnology right now at St. Lawrence. I finished my second year. I'm doing my third year. The program that I chose, it's actually an advanced diploma at St. Lawrence. So if I want to do an extra year for a degree, that's my choice, and I'll most likely be applying for that this year. So there's probably 2 or 3 universities I'm probably going to apply to this year and decide from there. So the big decision that I'm kind of having trouble deciding right now is whether or not I want to go overseas to finish it, because we have a really great, hola Ravi, we have a really great articulation agreement with IT Sligo in Ireland. And it would be, I don't know, I think it would be an amazing experience just to live in a different country with a slightly different culture. And have that experience along with my science education. But it is a big decision. I wouldn't want to leave my cat. There is a slight quarantine period, bringing an animal over there. And I have some elderly family. I'm not sure if I want to leave that long. So it's kind of where my head is right now as a student. Any other questions? There's only one person watching. Oh, hi, Ian. How are you? Is it free to study there in Canada? It's not free, but we do have really good student loan programs. Where I live in Ontario, we have OSAP. And just recently, Ontario had a complete overhaul of their OSAP. So a lot of money that you would have received from the government as a loan is now given to you as a grant. So you have very little student debt walking away from it. So it's not free, but it's very little compared to what you would used to pay, and you don't have to pay it back until after you graduate, and then it's not all at once. You do payments, so it's not too bad. If you're determined and committed and you finish school and you get a good job out of it, you won't have a problem paying it back. Ian says he's only half awake, so I only count as half of you. Okay, Ian, do you have any questions? Where are you from, Andres Hoyos? Yeah, in case no one knew before, I'm Canadian. We don't drink maple syrup or any other weird Canadian stereotypes. Orlando, Florida. Okay, so you're pretty close to Ian there. So I'm not so familiar with the education system in this United States as to like how students get funding. Do you have like similar like student loan programs, or do you have to go through the bank, or? Is that your only contribution, Ian? Your half of view? Yeah, you do student loans. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are afraid of them, and depending on what you're doing as a program and where you're going to school, is definitely going to depend on how much you're going to walk away with a debt. But I don't know. If you're smart, like, and I don't mean like have good grades, like if you're smart about how you do it, where you go to school, what program you do, and how much you borrow, and if you work during school, I think it's really doable. A lot of people don't realize just how easy it really is to borrow the money, go through school, and pay it back. Yeah, I could see how tuition might be more expensive there. tuition's was getting really expensive here too. And I know just like with my program, every year that I've been in it, tuition has gone up a little bit. And it's probably gone up like this year when I go back, the tuition I'll be paying is probably going to be about $1,000 more than when I paid the first year. But like I said, with the overhaul and the OSAP student loan program, I'm actually paying back less this year than what I did will have to from the first year. And I don't know, there are a lot of scholarships out there too that you need. Like, I mean, to get a scholarship, you don't necessarily have to be a straight A student. It was really good with great grades all around. There are scholarships out there for like people in certain like demographics or certain backgrounds, or for many reasons. If you just get on the internet and look them up and apply for them, there's quite a few out there. And there's even student websites that kind of search all the grants or scholarships that you would be eligible for and put them all up in one little search for you, which are really handy. Hi, Jennifer, nice to see you. Just kind of awkwardly rambling, waiting for questions. You can definitely make a lot of networking connections. I graduated this past December with a degree in biotechnology, and it's been a rough job search. I could definitely see that right now with the kind of like science climate right now where you are, a lot of funding has been cut, which is kind of sad. And in Ontario, with our recent election, Doug Ford, who just got elected in, some of his actions have maybe suggested that he might cut some science funding, which isn't great for us Canadians. With our program, though, we do have a placement that lasts 4 months, and a lot of the students that graduate from my program do end up with jobs from there. It could be where I live. We have 2 universities, DuPont, a DuPont plant. We have another company that does environmental analysis. So I think maybe I'm not feeling that pressure just because my particular area, we have a lot of job opportunities and growth in that sector. I'm really close to Toronto and like the greater area, which also has a lot of companies doing environmental innovation, medical research. So and also Ottawa too, they have quite a bit. So I can understand like certain areas not having as many jobs, and it might not be a great choice for you to move. Ian says his sister got grants and other assistance for 2 different fields, and I don't think she had to pay anything. Not 100% though. Yeah, like there's a lot of funding out there. Like you just have to find it and apply for it. Is there any specific company I want to work for, and do you want to research in the future? See, with me being a student, like that's a really hard question for me to answer right now, just because I haven't really gotten out there. On one hand, I think research would be really cool because you're learning stuff that's new. It's like you might be discovering stuff that no one else on Earth has ever known before, and that's potentially like really exciting. And there's a lot of interesting research that I've seen in the few placements that I've had the chance to look at so far. There's a woman in Halifax doing research on the skull development of zebrafish, and she's doing it for like the Canadian Space Program, which sounds really freaking cool to me. But at the same time, with research, it's not a continual thing. You're only working for as long as that research is being conducted with that group of people, and you're not going to have regular hours. It's not going to be like a regular 9-to-5 job. It's research. You're going to be working odd hours. You might be in the lab in the middle of the night, which might not be my favorite thing to do. But on the other hand, there's the industry where doing like a lot of analyzing. You're making like medical products. You're doing quality checks for prescription or food products. So with that, like you're not necessarily doing anything exciting in the sense that you're discovering new things, but you're going to have regular hours. You're going to have a continuous like full-time like job. It's not going to be a research project that ends after a specified time. So there's a little bit more job security, I would think, in industry. But like I said, I haven't really gotten out there to work in both fields and see if I like one more than the other. So I'm kind of torn right now, and it's kind of something that I'm going to have to decide when I choose my placement this year, which is our assignment that we have to have done when we go back. We have to choose 3 choices for our placement in order of preference and explain why we want to go there. We have a really long list. It's almost like 100 placements long. They're all over Canada. One's actually in Ireland. And they're all doing different things, and we're just given a link for each placement, and it is up to us to go on that link and figure out what each placement is, what we'd be doing if we want to go there. And some of the links are just literally a LinkedIn profile, which isn't a lot to go on and can make things a little bit more difficult and time consuming. But like for specific companies, I actually did a project in my plant biotechnology class on this one really, really cool company that's in Markham, Ontario, which is probably about 2 or 3 hours away from where I live now. And it's called Pond Biofuels. And it's a really, really cool company. What they do is they grow algae, and they use the algae to capture the carbon out of like industrial emissions, and the carbon feeds the algae for their carbon fixing. So they feed off of the exhaust, and then they turn it into carbon, and like organic carbon in themselves. So they're closing the carbon loop. And then what they're doing with that algae after it's matured and died is they're using it as biofuel. So they have this whole cycle, complete like closing the carbon loop, where they're sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere. And they figure if they do this with enough industrial factories or anywhere that has CO2 emissions, that they can reduce the world carbon emissions by 40%, which is huge. And you don't even have to change how we do our factory or producing things, like anything that produces the carbon. We don't have to change anything. They made the technology to be implemented on what we're already using. So that's pretty amazing. And they're actually winning a lot of awards right now. And I have shared quite a bit of their stuff. So yeah, if you want to check them out, they're a really cool company, Markham, Ontario, Pond Biofuel. And I don't know if they've actually started selling them yet, but they're also looking to get into the nutraceuticals, which is kind of odd, but they are using algae. So they're taking like spirulina, chlorella, algae, and they're also using them for nutraceuticals, because despite the woo that's out there, algae can be pretty dense in nutrients. If someone has problems absorbing stuff, I don't know, it could be used as a multivitamin or just to make sure you're getting nutrients, but it is okay, I guess. There's nothing weird or wooey about it. Yeah, it is awesome work. And another great thing too is it's not just the CO2. There is a little bit there's a few other things. It wasn't this school year, it was the year last school year, my first year that we did that project. So there are a few other harmful emissions that it does capture some of and take out of the environment as well. But yeah, that's kind of my thought on that, my little ramble. How did I get into science and biotech? Oh dear. I had a pinned post on my page for a while. I used to be a holistic nutritionist. I studied holistic nutrition at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. I've mentioned this a bit in my my posts, like when I first started the page. I haven't really talked about it in a while, and I unpinned the post after a while. But I went to school and studied woo, like for real. There is a school that through some clever legal maneuvering, they are able to present themselves as a college, a private college, and what you think you're studying for designation as a registered holistic nutritionist, you're actually paying for the rights to use a trademark. So I attended there. A lot of the stuff they taught, like, I mean, a lot of the basic science they taught was sound. One of our teachers was a Queen's alumni, Queen's University. She taught us our heavy stuff, like the anatomy, physiology, chemistry, and she didn't teach any of the other courses. But beyond that, there was a lot of woo that was taught. There was a lot of anti-vaccination propaganda that was taught. There was a lot of stuff that I had to fact check over the years and come to find that there's no scientific basis. If anything, like with the Andrew Wakefield thing, they lost their career over it, and there was a huge controversy that they just kind of didn't fail to include in the education. So I worked in that field for quite a while, and someone being in that field, you're kind of aware of environmental stuff. So like environmental problems that are legit, but also you hear a lot about organics and GMOs. And there's a lot of bullshit that's taught and said in those communities about GMOs and organics. One of the things that blew my mind, and that was like one of the final straws that broke the camel's back, was organics. Now, we are taught in those schools that organics are pesticide free, they're not modified genetically. Kind of come to find out that organics do use pesticides. They use a fuck ton of them, excuse my language. They often use a lot more than what is used in conventional farming because of the types that they use. So the types of organic pesticides that are used just have to be naturally derived. That doesn't really go to say how safe they are for the environment. So you end up using pesticides like copper sulfate, which is talked about a lot. And the people that are kind of speaking up against this bullshit. And copper sulfate is a lot more harmful to the environment. It accumulates in the water, accumulates in the soil more than glyphosate, which is constantly being thrown under the bus, constantly being talked about as one of the worst things known to man. The stuff that they're spraying on their organic crops is worse than glyphosate, and it's more carcinogenic. So when you're working in that field and you're learning these things, and you work at a place that starts selling apricot seeds, and you have people with cancer coming in and asking for them and having to warn them not to eat too many because of the cyanide, and other people asking for stuff that you should never consume, or you can't even buy because it's so unsafe that Canada doesn't even allow it on the market. There's supplements that are constantly being pulled off and put back on the shelf because the FDA is constantly pulling them off the market and then saying, well, okay, let's put it back on, and then people abuse it. So working in that and seeing how organic is bullshit, and learning how our world population is growing at a vampant rate. We have a finite amount of land that we can use for agriculture to feed our population. In my mind, GMOs that allow us to have bigger yields in smaller amounts of space, that use less pesticides, less chemicals, less water. It can feed more people. I think that's a good thing, and I think that it's kind of a necessity going forward, trying to fix the mistakes that we've made in the past with the environment. We're like, it's a learning curve for us. We have to learn, we have to fix these things, and expecting everyone to live organic with no GMOs is, I don't know, kind of selfish in my opinion. So that was kind of like my intellectual journey on it, and seeing that and wanting to make a change and learning that like biotech kind of does a lot of these things that I see as issues in our world that I hold near and dear, and I think that we need to do something about, working on improving our impact on the environment, working on better medical care. Like there's so many things out there that biotechs can do, like working on new antibiotics. We're doing work with some really cool stuff, engineering. I mean, the future holds a lot of great things, and I don't want to be telling people about it. I want to be out there and doing it if I'm capable. That's kind of how I look at it. So that's kind of how I got got into biotech. I was always a science nerd though. Don't get me wrong. I was a Bill Nye kid growing up. I love science. It's kind of my passion, and I, like, in the holistic field, just didn't do it for me. I mean, like, after a while, like, learning all the BS that comes with that field that isn't scientific, and just, it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do more science. I wanted to be in the lab. I wanted to be in the field, collecting samples, recording data. That's, I don't know, that's just my passion in life. That's what makes me personally happy. I feel I put it in the lab. And I've met a lot of great people. Our program director, I love her. We have, like, I mean, we don't have a bad teacher in our program. Shout out all to all my teachers. None of them like my page. I've kind of kept it a secret from most of my schoolmates. Some of my friends know, but shout out to my teachers: Candace, Shannon, Delina, Steve, Roshni, and Clark. Can you get into more of your view on organic, please, if you have time? I'm not too keen on it, and lately it's a topic brought up lately. Sure. So traditionally, like, what people think, the mainstream people think that organic foods are crops that are grown without pesticides. None whatsoever. And that's just not true. They are grown with pesticides, almost all of them. One of the big ones is copper sulfate. You can look it up. It's like, look up, like, compare it to glyphosate and the effects in the environment. Glyphosate doesn't accumulate in the water, and in turn the marine, not marine, but like the water wildlife, like the fish, the waterfowl, things like that, it doesn't accumulate and poison them as much. And glyphosate doesn't accumulate in the soil as much. Copper sulfate does, and because these are non-GMO crops, because a lot of the tinkering that we do as biotechs with crops is to make them more resistant to pests, so we don't have to use as much pesticides, so we're not spraying our fields with as much poisons as those people like to say. So a lot of tinkering that we do is for them not to need as much pesticides. So because organics don't have that engineering, they need more pesticides, so they need to spray them with larger amounts of pesticides, and these naturally derived pesticides are more harmful for the environment and for us. And to get into the whole population thing, yeah, we're gonna be at 8 billion people soon. Earth is only so big. Without getting into like the controversy of our population, we have to think critically here. We only have so much space that we can use for agriculture, land that's fertile, land that hasn't been delegated to living, or other things that we have built as a society. And all this land has to be able to produce enough food to feed everyone in the world. We want to prevent world hunger, right? It's not something that we want to make worse. So if you only have so much land and you already have fears of soil fertility, because if you keep farming on the same land and you don't take care of it properly, it's not going to be farmable after a while. It's going to lose all its nutrients. It won't grow anything. It will be like desert land, basically. So with those things in mind, you want to create safe, because yes, they have been tested. There is a lot of data out there. There's a lot of ethics out there that like even we're considering like allergens, like whether it should be GMOs should have like allergens like labeled on them, because if there's, I think you get my train of thought there. But you want to have something that's going to have a higher yield for that set amount of land. Water is a priceless resource. We only have so much of that. So if you can engineer crops that aren't going to need as much water, we're saving that resource. And if it's more resistant to pests and we don't have to spray them as much, we're going to have higher yields because there's going to be less pestilence on those crops. We're not going to have to spray as much pesticides, so there's not going to be as much concern about that getting into the environment and the people that have to work with it. So GMOs and non-organic crops are actually a really good thing, in my opinion, because of those reasons. It allows us to feed more people, especially when we're trying to end things where people are starving in some places in the world. Like there was a huge controversy in I don't know exactly which countries the golden rice was introduced. I know it was in Asian countries where there's a lot of vitamin A deficiency and rice is a staple food. So what they did was they engineered a strain of rice to have vitamin A in it, high levels of vitamin A, like healthy levels of vitamin A. And it was called golden rice because it has an orange pigment to it from the vitamin A. And what it was meant to do was be a source of vitamin A to these people who were going blind, having all kinds of deficiency issues because they were deficient in vitamin A so badly. And what happened was people like Greenpeace came in and fear-mongered them and told them, oh, these are GMOs, they're bad for you, you shouldn't eat them. And they burned the fields. They didn't eat the rice, and a lot of people suffered for it. So when you take these things into consideration, I think GMOs and traditional farming, what we consider traditional farming today, is far superior over organic farming. I mean, if we were cave people, had one city in the middle of like North America and everyone had food and we didn't have to worry about stuff like that, maybe we could grow organic and people wouldn't suffer. But that's not the case today. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying this is like the way it is. That's just what I think about organic and the way I take it from what I've studied on it. And this is coming from both sides of the argument too, because you have to remember that I did work and study in that mindset for a long time, and science got me out of it. Thankfully. But that's my take on it. I think organic is irresponsible. I think GMOs allow us to feed more people when that is a growing concern. Even before we were close to 8 billion people, there was places in the world that didn't have a lot of food just because of the landscape or the type of soil they have there, or the type of weather. So if we can create plants that can live in drier, more arid places, live in more harsh conditions, and feed people, that's a good thing, especially if there is no data out there saying that it's going to harm them. But that's kind of my rant on organic, Ravi. I don't know if you have any more specific questions. And yes, Joshua, yay, science. I don't know, questions? Here I am drinking my pop without a straw. Okay, guys. That was craziness. By the way, fuck you, Greg. I know you're still hanging around. I'm not going to ban you because meh, but no problem, Ravi. What do you think is the best way to educate people who are into the holistic mumbo jumbo? That's a tough question because I find that a lot of people in that community are really quick to the defense. And sometimes it's really, even I find myself, oh no, I was just saying fuck you, sorry. Stop mid-sentence, but Joshua, no, I was just saying fuck you, Greg, about the straw business. But getting back on the holistic mumbo jumbo, yeah, people tend to be defensive. And I can't say that I'm really exempt from that flaw because I have jumped the gun on people and be like, no, you're stupid. And I think a lot of us have been guilty of that. But I think if you can keep, if you can kind of step back and not take it personally and just try to open a dialogue with them, like just have a conversation, start a conversation very civilly and treat them with respect. Like treat them like they have spent time researching it. Like, mind you, they have spent time researching it, mind you, not in the most ideal places, but just kind of don't validate them, but just kind of like try to talk to them like they're your equal going into the conversation, if you can understand what I mean by that. More like question why they believe that and get the reasoning. If you can get them talking about them saying, I believe this because of this, and this is the evidence that I'm basing it on, it's a lot easier for you to open up a debate civilly where you can say, I see what you're saying, but I disagree, and then go on and to rebut what they're saying with science and maybe give them more valid sources to look at, and like just maybe try to explain to them that like not all sources are valid. Like when I went to school, one of our first classes that we had, Intro to Biotech, the whole first semester, we were doing assignments on looking up sources, looking up research. Essentially, they were teaching us how to do research, and learning the difference between a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary source, and the value that they hold. And another thing that we've had to do is write scientific articles. And like, I mean, when you're writing a scientific article, you're not going to be citing tertiary sources on that because you look like an idiot. But just like kindly explaining to them like the difference between sources and what is a valid source and what isn't, because a lot of people out there don't understand what a valid source is, and they don't understand that a lot of stuff out there isn't based on an actual study. One of the most valuable things that I learned as a scientist is to find a study, is when someone's making a claim, to actually find the study that that claim is based on. Because if you're a real scientist, you look at a study, you look at the data in a study, you look at all of it, and you look at the conclusion, and you form an opinion based on that. And when you are making a legit source, you are sourcing that study. So you're taking the information straight out of there, and that's what you're basing your opinion on. And that is what a valid source in essence really is you're basing it on something that has been tested, an article has been written about it, and then it has been reviewed by peers in the scientific community, and they have agreed with it, and then it's been published in an article in a journal that only publishes legitimate articles. And that's, like I said, a lot of people just don't understand that. And I think that's a really good starting point when talking to these people, is teaching them what an actual source and a valid source is. Because once you can pick out a valid source, it's pretty easy to pick out the woo and the bullshit from there. Or a lot of times, like, you'll even find that some of like the really good woo artists, they'll cite articles, but when you actually go to click on them, they don't exist, like, at all. or they've been redacted, or there's some other controversy that has been included in the article as an edit. So that's kind of like how I would say would be the best way to educate the holistic mumbo jumbo people, is teach them how to research, or kind of get them on the right path to that. Yeah, it definitely can get really frustrating, because a lot of times once you, even if you go in it civilly and logically, once you start disagreeing with them and not being in an echo chamber, that's when the assholes come out. And it just kind of turns into an ad hominem screaming match. Which isn't really productive. Sometimes it can be fun and cathartic, but beyond that, it's probably not productive. Links to biased blog sites. If you want to share, I don't know, if anyone wants to share links to some like woo or derp that you want me to comment on or like see my reaction on, feel free to link them. What time is it? Holy crap. It's 10:55. So we've been on for about an hour. I don't know. If anyone has any more questions or links that you want me to look at, now would be the time to post them. I feel like I've been rambling on forever. People get caught up in their feelings. Yeah, and we're all guilty of that, definitely. Especially in today's society. People seem to be getting triggered a lot and maybe taking offense to things where no offense was meant, or like, perfect example would be my straw post. I made a post about straws not being great for the environment. Now, I thought, in my mind, when I posted it, I thought it was pretty obvious that straws are not that great for the environment. It's a pretty easy way to change our lifestyle to make a small improvement. And I honestly didn't think it needed to be explicitly explained that I am not against disabled people using straws, that I personally think that's a completely different story. If you have a disability and you need to use a straw, I'm not going to deny you that or tell you you're a bad person or bad for the environment. Like I said, that if you're someone with a special need, you should have that special need if you need it. With that being said, a lot of people brought it up. A few people brought it up like very respectively. They're just kind of like pointing it out, and I really appreciate that. I definitely love the fact that we're bringing up awareness. You missed the entire thing. Well, you can always rewatch it. I would rather be talking science. I believe that is one of our pages that is in the Science Juice 2.0. So go check them out, guys. But yeah, back to the straw thing. I didn't think that it needed to be explicitly stated. And a lot of people were bringing it up, and a lot of people were being respectful. But then we had a few people that were just jumped the gun, accused me of being against the disabled people using straws, which was not the case. I actually even addressed it in the first thread where it was brought up and stated how I felt about it. And there was a whole conversation there explaining that, which went very respectively with Eddie. But then someone else commented, and when I referred them to that thread and I explained my stance on it and how I said like what a great change it would be if everyone who didn't need a straw stopped using them, and only the people who needed them were the ones that needed them. And I also went on to mention how I hope this would push the market to innovate for more disabled friendly reusable straws, because innovation is always great. And I mean, if there's a market out there, why not? And once I did that, they quickly switched to, well, most of them land up in landfills, so it's not an issue. And I asked him if he was daft, and I didn't think he was like intellectually capable of comprehending the issue. And then someone commented like, how dare you say that on a disabled thread? Well, like, I mean, first of all, it's not mentally disabled people that need to use straws to begin with. That was not who we were talking about. And I would never make a comment about intellectual capabilities about people who have any type of mental handicap. Actually, I think there's a lot of people with mental handicaps out there that are really intelligent in certain ways, or niche ways that would blow your mind. There's people out there that would be considered mentally handicapped, but they also have savant syndrome. They're freaking geniuses. So like I would never even go there because it's just not true. So I was just kind of blown away by that. And the fact that people reacted that way, I think it was silly. People get triggered over silly things these days. And I think that we just kind of all need to step back and think about things critically and logically, because that's the only way that we're going to improve as a species, as a society, is if we can control our emotions better, or knee-jerk reactions, and maybe let those go and kind of sit and think things through logically before we respond. I think that we as a species would do a lot better if more people did that. And like I said, I think we're all guilty of that, and we all need to be reminded, like even myself. But that's just, yeah, people do get caught up in their feelings. I don't know, whether getting political, because I try to stay out of politics. That's not really my sphere of interest, but I see a lot of people getting triggered these days over silly things that I think if they just thought about it, or listen to what everything that person had to say, because a lot of times people get like thrown under the bus for stuff that they didn't even mean. So I think we just need to listen and think critically. Ian Kyle says, I use 3 straws at once because I have OCD. If I'm drinking something blue, I need to use 4 straws. I can't help it. Well, I also happen to know that Ian's a pathological liar, so kidding. Ian doesn't use straws. Alrighty. Frankie, say relax. The person that got triggered on my page, he will not go unnamed. His name is Greg, and someone posted an awesome meme of Peter Griffin from Family Guy as a news anchor saying, "Shut up, Greg." And I think I might have to save that meme and pull it out in the future. But yeah, we love you, Greg. Keep up the good work. Mr. Strawman, as Joshua calls him. So before I end this live and eat my taco dinner from Mucho Burrito, is there is there any other questions, or is there a link anyone wants me to look at? I know I had a few requests to do stuff, but I think I'm going to save that for future lives. I think I might start doing more lives just because I don't know, I guess I can ramble pretty easily, more than I thought. And I don't know, it's fun talking with you guys. Yeah, and if anyone from the Science Juice 2.0 is watching that has a page, if you guys want to collab or something, work on something, I'd be more than happy to. I don't know if anyone that's joining in now didn't see the beginning. I started collaborating with a few other pages here on Facebook. They're small and growing like me. They're just starting out. We do a lot of the similar stuff. Some are a little bit different, but it's a lot of science-based content, a lot of making fun of woo peddlers, and just like nerdy jokes, stuff like that. So if you want to check them out or join the group, to see who they are, feel free to do it. It's called the Science Juice 2.0. I added a groups tab on my page, and I linked them in there so you can join and check everyone out. And also, I'm in the group. There's a lot of discussions going on in there, really interesting discussions. So if you guys want to join, that'd be awesome. So yeah. Last call for questions before I end this, because I'm kind of getting hungry. I worked tonight and I came home and did this this live, and I ordered mucho burrito from Skip the Dishes. No more questions? Alrighty. Well, I'm going to get going and I'm going to have my dinner. Anyone that watched, thanks guys. I hope to do more of these in the future. If that's something that you want to see, if you thought this was boring, let me know that too. I'm open to your critique. So yeah, it was great talking to you guys, getting to know you a little bit more. I hope you got to know me a little bit more. Oh, you're small page too, so you're not from the Science Juice. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, take a look. I would rather be talking science. That's awesome that you found me. I'll take a look at your page too later on tonight. Yeah, so everyone that watched, welcome. Thanks for watching. See you in the future. I don't know how often I'm gonna do these, but we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to start working on those requests as well for future lives. So everyone have a great night. Thanks for watching. I love you guys. It's awesome that I reached over 1,000 likes. Thank you for supporting and liking whatever. I really appreciate it. It's fun, definitely. It wouldn't be fun if I didn't have you guys to talk to. Anyways, have a good night. Bye.